Welcome to Uncommon Knowledge. I'm Peter Robinson. The editor of Commentary magazine, John Podhoretz, served as a speechwriter in the administrations of President Ronald Reagan, where he replaced yours truly, and of President George H.W. Bush. Mr. Podhoretz is the author of one of the best books on the administration of Bush the Elder, and indeed, in my opinion, on presidential politics, full stop, Hell of a Ride, Backstage at the White House. In addition to editing Commentary, this august publication, John serves as a film critic for the Weekly Standard, another august publication, and was a 5-time champion on Jeopardy! John, welcome.
Thank you, Peter.
Segment 1, The Purposes of Political Combat. Oh, my America, you wrote in the April issue of Commentary, how partisan you have become, how difficult you have made it for visionary politicians who want nothing more than to improve you, close quote. What were you getting at, John?
Well, that's that phrase, the opening of that article is written in a voice of high irony, and the meaning, the overall meaning of the piece is that we've gotten to a point where politicians and pundits alike seem to detest politics, by which I mean the interplay of interest groups, public opinion, and politicians and political action. Politicians want to believe, particularly Barack Obama in my view, that once an election is over, politics ends and action begins. It is my view that in the United States, pretty much exclusively among the democracies, politics begins when elections end. That is to say, we have a system in which there are competing bodies of political power, executive branch, legislative branch, the judicial branch, and that every action that is taken in Washington, in the states, in municipalities, every single action is itself a political battleground, and that is as it should be. Every argument needs to be won, every discussion needs to be fought over, every policy needs to go through a public process. In parliamentary systems, this is not the case. In parliamentary systems, politics ends, the executive and the legislative branches are unified, and politicians act at will, and the minority has very little power and sway.
They get to stand up during question time and make fools of themselves, but they don't get to act.
And then there is this mysterious sort of method of political change in which somehow a politician loses the confidence of people in his own party, and there's a vote of no confidence, and then an election is called if this happens under other schedules. In our system, Barack Obama wants a health care bill, and once he decides he wants a health care bill, that is when politics begins. It is driven by issues, it is driven by legislation, and politicians and the people who want a great deal of political action do not like this, and they stand in opposition to once it happens. They don't like it. They
Woodrow Wilson's doctoral dissertation, 1883, maybe. Wilson, you see this impatience with the Constitution of the United States. He wants a unitary system like that of Britain, a parliamentary system. So you see this impatience with checks and balances and the slow-moving nature of American politics more than a century ago on the progressive side, right? So the question then is, what is distinct? Because what you're writing in this piece, you're saying there's something distinctive about the present moment. Rick Hertzberg has written in The New Yorker of our the annoying hydraulics of our 18th century construction. In other words, Rick Hertzberg really condescends to the Constitution of the United States. James Fallows likewise in a recent piece. What's going on there? In other words, there's this long strand within the progressive movement where there's something special going on at this moment, is what you're arguing.
Well, because our system is built to retard the ability of politicians to act. That is the construction of the American system, is that politicians cannot act at will. The Constitution is written specifically to say that those powers that are not explicitly given to Washington do not belong to politicians, that the abrogation of people's utter and complete right to do anything is precisely enumerated in the Constitution. What they cannot do is limited there, but is once politicians want to play with that, they're supposed to be competing centers of power to make it not so simple and not so easy. And here we have, in the last 16, 17 months, a perfect illustration of this, because you have a president who won by a large majority, 6 or 7%. He has a 75-seat margin in the House of Representatives and a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, and it has proven very difficult for him simply to get his way. Months of negotiations over health care. At one point, it looked like the bill was going to go down. There was even talk of figuring out some system whereby the health care bill could be deemed to have passed even without a vote. Similarly, financial reform, you would have thought that would have passed in 5 seconds with no difficulty. It's taken a year for financial reform to go through. And that is with a president with a commanding majority of his own party in Washington. Why? Because in the United States, politics resides, the power in politics resides in the body politic.
The national, I'm quoting you again from the same essay, the national counter-assault against Obama is a manifestation of democratic politics as they ought to work. Mm-hmm. So the liberals who are impatient are in the wrong. Grow up. This is the way it works in America. That's your message to Obama, to the liberal, to the press that's so fawning in its support of him. Right or not?
Absolutely.
Got it.